Hello dear students, welcome to this tutorial about the narrator. The narrator is the third element in our literary analysis, and today let's know what is a narrator. A narrator is the person who tells the story. The narrator is different from the author. Basically, the narrator is the person who is in charge of telling us the story and all the events that passed on it. Here, dear students, it's important to take into account we have three important elements inside the story. We have the author, the narrator, and the character. But what is the difference between those three elements? The author writes the story, the narrator tells the story, and the character acts out the story. Those three elements are totally different, but they are present in the story. It means that the author is the real person who writes stories or who writes fictional or non-fictional events in a book. The author is the person who creates the narrator and the character. So, as a conclusion, we can say that the narrator and the character are inventions of the author. The author needs to create a narrator to tell the story, to tell the readers the story, and also the characters to act out the story. An author writes the story, an author creates the narrator to tell the story, an author creates the characters to act out the story. As I told you before, those three elements are totally different. Narrator and character are inventions of the author. The author is a real person who writes stories. So he needs to create two different figures in order to tell us the story to the readers. Author and narrator. The author is not the same as the narrator. Here we have an example with this book. The book name is Roscoe Riley Rules, and the author is Catherine Applegate. So let's see what is the difference between author and narrator in a clear example. The author, as I told you, is Lady Catherine Applegate, is this girl. Is a real person who writes the story. And the narrator is a boy that is called Roscoe Riley. He's also a character in the story. It means that Catherine Applegate creates this character, whose name is Roscoe Riley, but he also is the person in charge of tell the story to the readers. So in this case we have a narrator and at the same time is a character. The author Catherine Applegate created the narrator Roscoe Riley to tell us the story. Here you have a fragment of this book. We are going to see better and clearer what is the difference. Let's read. Well, it all started this morning. I was helping my mom pack my lunch. Banana, I asked her, with no icky brown spots on it. Mom looked in my lunch box. Check, she said. This is a fragment of this book, as I told you. And as you can see, this girl, that is the author, creates Roscoe Riley, but at the same time Roscoe Riley is the person who is telling the story. He's a character as well. The narrator Roscoe Riley tells the story. He says these words to readers. The author, Catherine Applegate, wrote these words. She created the character Roscoe Riley to tell the story. So this girl creates or invents this boy to tell the story. He is the narrator, as I told you, but also is the main character of the story, and the name is Roscoe Riley. Narrator and character. Sometimes the narrator is also a character. It means that the person who is telling the story participates in the story as well as a character. All narrators tell about the action or the events that happen in the story. Some narrators do not participate in the action. As you can see in the figure, this girl is the narrator, those are the other characters. So the narrator, as you can see, is not participating in the action. She's just seeing what they are doing. But he can talk to them, or she can talk to participate in all the actions. And the second part is some narrators participate in the action. It means that this girl, that is the narrator, can talk to the characters, can participate in the actions that they are doing. It means that in this case, the narrator is a narrator and also character. It means that she's participating inside the story, but here she's not participating in the story. We're going to see a picture where you can see clearer the elements of the narrator. Narrator and character. All narrators tell about the action. So here you need to take into account three important elements. Please, if you have your folders, remember you have to take notes of this information on it. So the narrator could be protagonist or a witness. Those are the types of narrators that we can have in a story. The protagonist. He or she tells the story since his or her point of view and experience and acts out all the events on it. Besides, is the main character, so he or she participates in the action. That is the narrator who's talking or telling the story since his or her own point of view, and is the person who is a protagonist in the story, like Roscoe Riley. Riley Roscoe, as we could see in the story. The witness is the opposite of protagonist. So he or she knows all about the other characters, the story, and main events on it and tells the story, but he or she doesn't not participate in the action, just see all. So in general terms, the protagonist is the narrator who's participating and also is the main character. It means the narrator here is talking about his own experience. But here, the witness is just a person who's talking about the others, but he or she is not participating in the action. So he or she just talk about the others, but not talk about himself or herself. Those are the types of narrator. Second part, the person. The narrator can tell the story using two kinds of people, first person or third person. When the narrator decides, or the author better decides, the narrator tells the story in first person, talks in terms of I, me, I thought, I felt, like Riley Roscoe. Example, I saw him and I could understand how mad he was. As you can see, when the narrator is the first person, it's because the narrator is talking about himself or herself. Is talking about his or her own experience. It means the narrator is the person who's talking his own story or is talking about her own story. For that reason, use first person. I, me, and is talking about himself or herself. When the narrator decides to use third person, it's because the narrator talks in terms of he, she, they, she thought, they felt, he saw. Example, while Kate was gardening, he was looking at her and thought. As you can see here, the narrator is not talking about himself, he's talking about other people, different people. In this case, in the example, he's talking about Kate and he's talking about a man. We don't know the name of the man, but he's talking about different people, not about himself. It means the narrator is talking about the experience of other people. This is third person. So, in conclusion, when the narrator uses first person, it's because he or she is talking about himself or herself. But when the narrator talks in third person, it's because he or she is talking about the others, other people, different characters. And those are the kind of people that the narrator can use in a story. And finally, we have the part number 3. The literary style. A literary style is the way how the narrator tells the story. So here we have two styles, direct style and indirect style. The first, using this kind of style, means that the narrator tells the story using the exactly words said by them. For example, Jane was a shy girl. When Bruce talked to her, she said, "I'm sorry, I have to go." And then she left. When the narrator is using the direct style, it's because he or she is talking about the exactly words said by other people. For that reason, we are using quotation marks and quotation marks, because we are to referring the exactly words said by the other characters. The indirect style is, with this style, the narrator tells the story saying all with his own words. For example, Jane was a shy girl, and when Bruce talked to her, she said that she had to go, and then she left. As you can see, the difference between this style and this is that, for example, in the first we are using quotation marks, because we are talking about the exactly words of those characters. But here, in the second style, we are not using quotation marks. Why not? Because the narrator is using his or her own words in order to talk about some words that other characters said. Can you see the difference in the examples? They contain the same information, but it is told with different styles. So as a conclusion, in direct style, the narrator uses the exactly words of the characters. But in the second style, the narrator uses his own words or her own words in order to explain what others said before. Those are the styles that a narrator could use. And dear students, those are the three important elements that you must take into account when you are going to talk about the narrator. I hope it was clear, and let's continue with the second part. So please see the next video to understand what you have to do here. See you in the next tutorial.